Our pick of the Mercedes CLE Coupe range is this 300e plug-in hybrid version. As well as suburban EV capability, it gains wafty rear air suspension and offers a luxurious turn of pace.
What kind of engine might work best with an old-school premium executive mid-size coupe? Well, Mercedes has tried quite a few over the many years it has made such a thing, assembling a heritage of two-door trendsetters stretching right back to the 50s. During this century's second decade, the brand was represented in this niche by the C205-era C-Class Coupe and the C238-era E-Class Coupe, both of which, interestingly, were most favoured by customers in their diesel guises. In late 2023, when the CLE Coupe was introduced to replace both of these models, Mercedes was needing to reduce its reliance on diesel sales, and so to sell alongside black pump fueled variants, it introduced a petrol power plant it thought might suit some coupe customers rather better, hence the arrival of this model, the CLE 300e plug-in hybrid. You might worry about some of the issues that adding PHEV tech to a car of this kind might create. You don't want extra weight to spoil agile coupe handling, and you don't want reduced boot space to minimise your sport's two-doors capacity for grand touring. And a Mercedes coupe is already expensive enough without adding the extra cost of PHEV tech to the asking price. So can this CLE 300e still succeed in the face of such odds? To find out more, you're going to need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. This variant uses what the brand calls its fourth generation hybrid powertrain. In this case, that sees a 4-cylinder, 2-litre petrol turbo M254 engine with 204 horsepower, paired with a permanent magnet synchronous motor contributing 150 horsepower. That motor is energised by a 25.4 kilowatt-hour nickel manganese cobalt battery that can power the car for up to 69 miles before fossil fuel kicks in. The drive system's paired with the brand's usual 9G Tronic Plus 9-speed automatic gearbox, and total output is 309 horsepower, enough despite the portly 2.1-tonne curb weight to power the car to 62 miles an hour in 6.3 seconds en route to 147 miles an hour. Apart from the drivetrain, what's really different with this PHEV to other CLE variants is the damping. No doubt due to its heavier weight, this 300e ditches the steel-coiled agility control sports suspension we mentioned earlier in favour of a self-levelling, adjustable air suspension setup on the rear axle. You should find the result to be the best riding variant in the range. That extra weight further dilutes the potential for pin-sharp handling, but most customers will be prioritising the quiet, luxurious vibe this car comfortably serves up. The 300e's dynamic select drive modes are a little different to the eco, comfort, sport and individual settings you get on other mainstream CLEs. With this PHEV there are instead electric, hybrid, sport and individual options, plus a battery hold setting to preserve EV charge for later on in your journey. Mercedes has made some achingly pretty mid-size coupes over the years, but not recently. You have to go back to the C123 of the 70s or the C124 of the 80s for something that didn't really look like a two-door saloon. But this C236-era CLE is perhaps the most strikingly styled shape we've seen from Stuttgart in this segment since then. The sleek silhouette doesn't emphasise that length increase, yet at 4,850 millimetres, this car is a significant 82 millimetres longer than its BMW 4 Series arch rival. As for Mercedes model comparisons, well, from a glance at the design stats, you might think the CLE has more in common with a C than an E. Its 2,685mm long wheelbase, for instance, is identical to that of a C-Class saloon. But much is different too. The CLE not only measuring 99mm longer than that sedan, but sitting 10mm lower. And of course, the look around the silver-framed glasshouse is very different, with a heavily curved roof leading to curving C-pillar treatment. At the front, the long bonnet gains subtle bulges, and there's a prominent grille punctuated by lovely little three-pointed stars. Providing you avoid base spec, these shark nose LED headlights feature Mercedes piercing digital light tech and sit above shiny black framed corner cutouts with twin black flicks that flank a lower intake with a silver lower apron. The rear is probably this CLE's least successful angle. The tail light panel a bit droopy and EQ-like, but the way the roof section flows down across the flush-fitting rear window to the uber-subtle boot spoiler is one smooth sweep is simply lovely. Silver tailpipe outlets complete the effect. Slim reflectors feature on both sides, and on this PHEV variant, unusually, the charging flaps built into the bumper. Okay, let's take a look inside. Where, as you'd hope, it all feels very nice indeed. A carryover C-Class cabin would have delivered much of the required premium effect, but it wouldn't have made you feel much like you were in a coupe. The belt butler that electrically hands you your belt as you get in does, as do the stylish one-piece sports seats and the dished three-spoke wheel. This is nevertheless, though, very much a C-Class derived cabin, given the E-model genes here. You might have hoped to see the E-Class model's wider, more expansive-looking fascia here. Maybe even that model's optional high-tech hyperscreen display. There's nothing like that here, but it still feels an appropriate generation on from what went before, and in an era where infotainment and instrument screens so often seem to be joined together these days, it feels more appropriate in a sporty car to have these ones separated. You might wish to be sitting a little lower, though, in a coupe, as you would be in a rival BMW 4 Series. But this CLE can feel a little more high-end than one of those. True, the 5 silver Quartic jet engine style oval vents that decorate the double-stitch fascia top feel disappointing to the touch, but the smart shiny finish for the console between the seats looks classy, as does the ambient lighting system with its strips in the doors, around the vents and around the centre console, flowing up into the fascia. Top variants get this open pore, aluminium lines, wood trim finishing, and nearly all variants have this large glass panoramic sunroof. We're not quite as keen on this 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, but that's mainly because it's so difficult to operate via these fiddly touch-sensitive steering wheel buttons, specifically those on the right-hand spoke. You'll usually have it in this twin-dialed classic format with various info sources selectable between the gauges, trip data, an eco display, a consumption meter, an attention assistant, your radio settings, and navigation. Alternative full-screen layouts are also available, an aggressive red-themed sport arrangement with a G-force meter and engine data, or layouts prioritising navigation, assistance or service requirements. Avoid the 2 base trims and you won't be looking at the screen much, because Mercedes provides a multi-configurable head-up display. Everything else you'll need to know lies on this big 11.9-inch MBUX centre screen, for which more fiddly buttons are provided on the left-hand wheel spoke. This monitor actually isn't as big as it first looks, because a huge chunk of the bottom section is, thankfully, taken up with permanently showing climate controls. These sit above shortcut buttons for drive modes, the camera system and volume. Plus, there's a fingerprint recognition sensor that works with the provided Mercedes Me app. As with other Mercedes models, the main part of the screen shows either with boxes set into a nav map or with rows of icons for things like apps, the brand's online store, or the car's Vivaldi web browser. There's also the brand's clever routines function, which learns the habits of the driver and can do things like automatically change the ambient lighting, automatically turn on the climate control, and set reminders for things like telephone calls on birthdays, all of it based on previous interactions. Usefully, with this CLE's improved version of MBUX, you can operate the voice control when a red microphone symbol appears on the driver's display. Previously, you always had to say, "Hey Mercedes," to activate it. What else? Well, these sport seats are comfortable and feature heat, lumbar support and power adjustment. Their slightly high positioning means that all-round visibility is better than you'd expect it to be in a coupe, though the wide rear pillars still obstruct your over-the-shoulder view, so you'll need the standard reversing camera and rear sensors. Mid-sized Mercedes coupes have always been practical, and this one doesn't deviate from that script. A pair of illuminated USB-C ports sit both in this usefully sized twin-lidded box between the seats and in the lidded cubby at the base of the centre console, where they're joined by a wireless charging mat and 2 cup holders. But the door pockets aren't that big, and the glove box is mainly taken up by the handbook, and on this plush model by the bulky Air Balance fragrance dispenser. Okay, let's take a look in the back. Now, the reason why the front seats have to be power adjustable is to work with this pull strap mechanism that moves them forward out of the way to clear admittance to the rear. The seat doesn't power back again to where it was once you're in, but that's just as well, because it would probably crush your knees if it did. No coupe is generous with legroom, and this one's no exception, though its extra body length over a rival BMW 4 Series means it's not quite as tightly proportioned here as in the back of that Munich model. It's just as claustrophobic though, thanks to the high waistline and narrow glasshouse. If you're graduating from an older two-door Mercedes, you'll find that it's not as roomy as the old E-Class Coupe because of 8mm less wheelbase length, but it's better than the cramped quarters of the old C-Class Coupe with 72mm more knee room. Hoping to distract you from spatial issues are a couple more Quartic vents and, in this case, intricately crafted Burmester speaker grills. A storage area between the seats provides twin cup holders and a cubby, and there's more storage at the side of each seat. Okay, we'll finish as usual with a look at boot space. This 300e PHEV variant suffers a dramatic boot size reduction to just 280 litres, which might limit your grand touring aspirations somewhat. There are 4 tie-down points and a warning triangle built into the boot lid. We like the pull-down hook that comes out of the load area roof. We don't like the fact that there aren't any boot area catches to release the rear seat backs for those times when you'll need to extend this space. This 300e PHEV model, which can't be had in cabriolet form, was priced from around £60,000 as we filmed. If it's a CLE 300e you really want, you're going to need to know how generous Mercedes has been with standard specs. So let's take a look at that now. LED high-performance headlights, heat insulating dark tinted glass, power folding mirrors, dynamic select driving modes and an alarm. While inside there's black leather upholstery, ambient lighting, a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, thematic automatic climate control, heated front seats with lumbar support and belt feeders, powered adjustment for the front seats and steering column with memory settings, a reversing camera and a wireless charging mat. Media stuff is dealt with by an 11.9-inch portrait MBUX infotainment screen with hard disk navigation and a 5G communications module, plus Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. AMG Line Premium adds larger 19-inch AMG alloy wheels, keyless go, keyless entry with a powered boot lid, a 360-degree camera system, and on this coupe, a panoramic sliding sunroof. For the real niceties though, you'll need the top 2 trim levels. This AMG Line Premium Plus model adds a head-up display, eye-catching black open-port aluminium-lined wood trim, multi-contour climatised front seats, a Burmester 3D sound system, an Air Balance fragrance generator, and the brand's Energising Package Plus, which adds various cabin comfort features to these, and an energising coach. For the top Premier Edition spec level, that only leaves a few more things to add. Softer Nappa leather upholstery, carbon fibre interior trim, a heated steering wheel, dark-themed night exterior styling package, and a black finish for multi-spoke wheels that'll be either 19 or 20 inches in size. Remember that unless you get your CLE in the only standard paint shade, solid polar white, you'll need to budget in at least £715 more for your choice of shade. We've got high-tech silver metallic here. What about safety equipment across the CLE range? Well, there's plenty of it as standard. Active brake assist, active lane keeping assist, blind spot assist, evasive manoeuvre support, traffic sign assist, adaptive high beam, a passive person presence reminder, and a pre-safe system that braces the cabin to withstand an impact. There's also attention assist, warning systems for traffic crossing ahead and behind as you manoeuvre, and helpful Mercedes traffic light assist and traffic light view features, plus the usual package of airbags, including a centre airbag, all linked to the usual e-call system. Spend around £1,700 more on the Driving Assistance Package Plus option we've been trying here. This adds an active element to the blind spot assist, which means braking intervention as well as just a warning. There's also active lane change assist, evasive steering assist, and pre-safe plus, which, if a rear-end collision threatens, can flash warning lights and lock the brakes on standstill. There's also active distance assist Distronic, which automatically keeps you a set distance from the vehicle in front on the highway and can automatically adopt posted speed limits. This CLE 300e petrol plug-in hybrid is rated at 470.8 mpg on the combined cycle, but as usual with plug-in hybrids, will probably return you fuel consumption much like you'd get from a good diesel. The emissions figure is of course more realistically relevant since it'll determine your BIK tax rate. In the case of this 300e, it's a super low 13 grams per kilometre thanks to the 69 miles of available EV range, which means you'll be BIK rated at just 8%, compared to 30% for the 220d and 34% for the CLE 200. There are electric and hybrid drive modes, plus a battery hold setting to preserve EV drive range for later in your trip. This PHEV model's centre monitor has an EV screen that shows a battery graphic and lets you choose between 3 available charging programs: standard, home and work. Plus, you can get the screen to show charging stations along your route. Service intervals for the CLE will depend on how far you drive and under what conditions, of course, but Mercedes does offer service care, which allows you to spread your bills into manageable payments, guarantees the price of parts and labour for up to 4 services, and covers the cost of recommended service items such as brake fluid, spark plugs, air filters, fuel filters and screen wash. Another thing we'll need to tell you is that the comprehensive 3-year unlimited mileage warranty is built upon by Mercedes Mobilo scheme, which delivers breakdown cover for up to 30 years, as long as you continue to have your car serviced at a Mercedes main dealer. You might be surprised just how much you like this car. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, boot space is restricted. But it's also in a class of 1 when it comes to premium, mid-sized PHEV coupes. Nor does it completely rely on that exclusivity for its appeal, thanks to cosseting ride, exemplary refinement and low running costs. We still see why a potential CLE customer might be tempted to save rather a lot and get an old tech diesel instead with this coupe, but that really doesn't fit with the EV era we all now find ourselves in. The way this CLE 300e can cruise almost silently around suburbs on battery power does, and we can imagine a likely owner being pleased a few years on in ownership that they paid the extra for this kind of cleverness. PHEV power suits this car rather well, as it turns out. Whoever would have thought it?